Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Charlie Brown Politics. I am your host, Charles Brown, and today I want to look at a story that has been capturing national news. It's a story about a local newspaper in Kansas that was raided by the police. Now, why would the police raid this newspaper? That's a good question. And so I want to watch a video from News Nation that's going to give us a little bit more information about this.
All right, a police raid on a small town newspaper is raising eyebrows and questions about press freedom and power of the police. But now one of the co-owners of the paper is dead, and her son is blaming the tactics of law enforcement. So here's what we know about this. Authorities in Kansas raided the offices of the Marion County Record, seizing reporters' computers and phones. They also raided the homes of the paper's co-owners, one of whom, 98-year-old Joan Meyer, died one day later. Now, her son...
All right, so some of you might be thinking, well, she was 98, so she was pretty close to kicking it, so that's fine. But let's keep the bigger picture in mind here, and that is free speech and free press.
Eric Meyer says he blames the stress and the trauma brought on by police. We should note that we have reached out to the police department for response. We have not yet heard back. Now, Eric Meyer joins us live now. Eric, I'm so sorry for your loss, and thank you for taking the time.
Thank you, Natasha. Appreciate it.
I know that you believe that the stress of the raids contributed to your mother's death. Can you tell us how she reacted to everything as it unfolded?
Well, it's not just me. It was also the coroner who visited her house after the death. She's 98 years old. She's in fairly good health for a 98-year-old. And police knock at her door, and they stand there for a couple hours, as she said, just watching me. Why are they watching me like I'm some common criminal? And they waited for apparently the police chief to show up to search the premises. And she spent the rest of the day being concerned about this, as I think anybody would. When you're 98 years old and you've lived in this house for 70 years, they actually moved there the day before I was born, and I'm 69 with a birthday coming up. So she had basically had her world invaded. And the fact that she says, where are all the good people who will prevent this? Why is this happening? The people used to respect information. They would never think about doing something like this. Now the past 50 years of her life working at the newspaper and co-owning it with me, she felt like everything was worthless.
Well, she has kind of a point. Look at what we're doing to Julian Assange. So
gone away. She muttered during the night. She wouldn't eat her dinner. She wouldn't eat breakfast. She wouldn't sleep. She sat up most of the night, muttering things like, this is going to be the death of me. I tried to calm her down and say, I think maybe good will come out of this in the end, that something will be exposed and we'll be able to advance out of it. And she says to me, I'll be dead by then. And sure enough, about 2 o'clock, I was asking her if she wanted to eat something and take her pills, and she says, I'm not feeling very well. I don't know that and died right in the middle of a sentence.
I'm so sorry. What did the coroner say to you when they arrived?
Well, the coroner had been her primary care physician for many, many years and had seen her recently in the hospital. And I asked him, I said, I didn't say it quite in these terms, but I said, I think the police chief killed her just now. And he says, I'm certain that the stress of all this was a major contributing factor. She didn't have a cardiac history. She didn't have, other than high blood pressure, but she wasn't somebody who was that fragile. She was a fighter who felt frustrated that she would be so pleased by the outpouring of support that the newspaper has received from people around the nation, around the world, since this happened, that would please her. I just wish she had had a chance to see that.
I have two more quick questions for you. Did police tell you why they were searching your homes and offices, and how would you describe their conduct?
Listen up.
Their conduct was okay, I guess. They told us only that we had a search warrant that alleged that we had committed identity theft and improper use of a computer. I was looking at the warrant. They didn't say how, because what really had happened was we'd gotten a document from a source, and we were attempting to verify the accuracy of that document. It turned out that it was a bunch of arguing in a divorce case, so we decided not to use it. But we notified the police at the time that someone had had this document and gave it to us. We weren't sure whether they were authorized to have it. We'd verified that it was real, and there were also allegations that the police were allowing the target of this to drive illegally. She'd apparently not had a license for more than 14 years. We reported that to the police and offered to give them assistance if they thought there was some case that they wanted to investigate. We never heard back from them. A week later, they raided our office.
Well, and police say that once the details of this case come to light, that people will see they are justified. What do you have to say to that?
You really believe that? Isn't that what everybody says? There are no other details. We know what we did. Why did they raid the vice mayor's house? Not only do we know what we did, the vice mayor knows what we did, and the person whose identity was supposedly stolen knows what we did. She figured it out. She figured out that her husband had obtained this report and given it to a source who gave it to us, and she admitted that to me 4 days before the raid. If all we did was check it out to make sure that the document was in fact a legitimate document, had no intention of disseminating, which is the restriction on that. If we are guilty of identity theft, so is Marion Police Officer Zach Hudlin, who was the other person who accessed it. Why, when we verified on a public site, we verified the accuracy of the document, why would we have given our own name? I mean, are we the world's stupidest hackers? No, we're not. And why would we have notified the police? They wouldn't even have known about it if we hadn't notified them of it.
Okay, Eric Meyer, I am sorry again for the loss of your mother. I do appreciate.
All right, so what the hell is going on here, right? We got the police saying that this news organization was suspects of identity theft and misuse of a computer. We just heard Mr. Meyer debunk that whole argument. And so the question needs to be thought about, is it okay for the police to raid a news organization and their homes and take their computers and information simply because this news organization is looking into information that the police might not like? It might shed a bad light on the police. Maybe it's shedding a bad light on someone that is close with the police. I don't know. So these are questions that we need to be thinking about. We need to, keep in mind free speech and freedom of the press. These things that are supposed to be important because obviously they're in our Constitution. And so why did the police really raid this news organization? And so I want to go to another video clip that might give us a little bit of an explanation on that. So here we go.
You have a new development in a story we brought you yesterday. The police chief behind a Gestapo-style raid on a small Kansas town newspaper was being investigated by the paper over claims of sexual misconduct. The paper's co-owner Eric Meyer tells News Nation his reporters received word of several allegations from the police chief's co-workers, but ultimately no victims came forward, and so the paper decided not to run the story. Meyer believes the subsequent police actions and the stress was too much for his 98-year-old mother, who passed away one day after authorities raided her home and office.
She wouldn't eat her dinner. She wouldn't eat breakfast. She wouldn't sleep. She sat up most of the night, muttering things like, "This is going to be the death of me." I tried to calm her down and say, I think maybe good will come out of this in the end, that something will be exposed and we'll be able to advance out of it. And she says to me, "I'll be dead by then."
So joining us now to talk about this is News Nation legal contributor Jesse Weber. Jesse, thanks so much for coming on.
Great seeing you. Thanks for having me.
It is a convoluted case, but Jesse, does this latest development change the way that you are perceiving and tracking this case?
It just looks even worse than it already did. So There were so many legal questions that were arising about whether or not law enforcement has the right or authority to enter into a news organization and take their property. And I could go over why federal law protects news agencies and media organizations from that happening. But now to learn that the chief of police who was spearheading this raid may have been investigated by the very paper that he had his officers raid, it doesn't look good. And so what you're basically seeing is this puts the impetus on the police department to say, why did they feel justified to do this? I mentioned federal law. When you raid a news organization, typically speaking, the law requires a subpoena, not just a warrant, a subpoena. And so why they felt the need to raid the office and figuring there was this level of criminal activity that was going on, they now have to show cause for why that happened. And I have to tell you, from a PR point of view, it just looks really bad for the police department. But then again, they feel that they had the right to do it. We have to see what this investigation is going to
we are.
All right. So that gives us a little bit of an insight on what's really going on. This police chief of this now Marion, Kansas, had to allegedly step down from his previous police chief role because of alleged sexual misconduct. Now, if this turns out to be true and the police went after this news organization because they were tipped off to this information, obviously it's a major abuse of power. And so we got to keep thinking and looking about free press and free speech and how we cannot be allowing this. Good on News Nation for bringing so much attention to this and bringing this discussion to the forefront. I've gone over it, free speech, in previous videos. You guys know that I feel it's a cornerstone of our democracy. Obviously, our founding fathers felt the same way. And so this should be scaring everybody that is in media, because who's next, right? First, it's this small local newspaper, and think about how scary that is that they actually gave a shit about a small local newspaper. So even if you're not in media, this should be scaring you. It starts with the news, but where does it stop? Who's to say when you post something on Facebook that the police don't like that they're going to be showing up at your door next? Now, I haven't looked into it myself, but I'm guessing that has already happened, that someone's already posted something on Facebook and the police knocked on their door. But don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But we all know that this tactic of force of canceling out information and censoring information that gets out there is always used to discredit dissenting voices that go against the status quo, against profit margins, against corporations, against the government, whatever, right? And so we have to just keep this at the forefront of our thoughts. Let's not forget about what they've done to Julian Assange. Okay, he's still in prison. He's not an American citizen. He's a journalist. And so, yeah, guys, this should be concerning to us all. I want to keep following the story and get the details, keep looking at the details of it. And that's going to be about it, guys. Let me know what you thought. Give me your comments about the video, about free speech, about this newspaper, whatever. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. And with that, I will catch you guys on the next video. Later.